State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Reading is feeding the mind. Feed the mind. Go to udarabooks.com. Udara Books, feeding the mind.
The program is State Affairs. My guest is Gboyega Adejumo. I'm looking at your piece. You titled it Valuable Lessons to be Learned in Tinubu's Current Displacement. And you talked about what is hidden in plain sight. I wonder why you feel Tinubu is currently being displaced.
What is happening to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu at this time is a certain decline in terms of his influence, his power, and his ability to gather to himself a very strong political force. Like the type of political arrangement he had a few years back. And when I said it is hidden in plain sight, of course, there is a play of words, oxymoron. If something is out there, then why is it hidden? It is hidden because there will be others who would want to believe that everything is fine with the Asiwaju, the praise singers, the hangers-on, the parasites. They're all there. Those who would even profess to hold him close to the position of a political god. Because, of course, they derive even their livelihood from that source. But to the people who are neutral, to those who are observers, and to those who follow the trajectory of his ascendancy to power and to what is happening to him right now, we know that with every empire, there will come a period of decline, and it has started for Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
When you talk about empire, are you saying there is a Tinubu political empire?
Of course, there has always been the case of political figures rising and being able to tower above the rest of us. And they build such an empire. And I would particularly use the examples that abound. People can say that even the word dynasty, which is often misused, can be interchangeable with a political empire. If we are talking about a dynasty, we are talking about the succession of bloodline. There was a time there was a mistake of saying that the Obama dynasty wanted to birth a Hillary Clinton. Nothing of the sort could ever be called a dynasty. If you said a dynasty, then you could be talking about the Bush family that have produced 3 governors and produced 2 presidents. That's a dynasty. But again, when I talk about the empire, what we had in the Southwest during the time of Chief Obafemi Awolowo was certainly an empire. And I will not mince words in saying that since the time of Oduduwa, the progenitor, who united the whole of the Yoruba, because Yoruba are city-states and all of that, but he was able to bring them under a common authority. Chief Awolowo had been the second person, perhaps after Alaafin Abiodun, to have been able to unite the Yoruba. If you know how the framework of the Yoruba city-states worked in the olden times, every city was like an authority to himself, like we had with the Roman and the Greek formations of old, that every city was almost like autonomous. But here comes the Tinubu, who was only governor of Lagos State, but he used all the instrumentalities of a modern-day emperor to gather to himself the 5 other states that make up the Southwest. And he was the overlord of Oyo, Ogun, Ondo, Ekiti, by installing governors from his own party, which was formerly ANC, and then that became ACN. So he was a political emperor of sorts. And that empire looked so solid, almost invincible. The opposition party were very far behind in being able to match his dexterity and his ability to gather to himself the young, the old. So that is how empires are made. Empires are made from such an arrangement where one person in modern political arrangement, modern political displacement, could, like Awolowo did, pull together different and diverse institutions and be the overlordship of all, extending even to Edo State. That was a political empire, no doubt about it.
You just talked about using the instrumentalities of empire building. What are those instrumentalities in the case of Tinubu?
The instrumentalities were total. First, they say, seek ye the political kingdom, and every other thing will be added unto you. He sought for the political kingdom. He created that political kingdom all by himself. He was able to go to court, wrest power from the PDP, the ruling party in the Southwest. He displaced the Afenifere, the major movement, the people who had had been the voice of the Yoruba since 1951, which remained unchanged until Tinubu came in 2003 to displace the Afenifere. So he took over completely, in every form and shape, the destiny of the Yoruba. He took over the government. He was the Lord. He was calling the shots. No one would become governor without Tinubu saying so. He appointed everyone. He appointed his children into places, into offices. He appointed his cronies into offices. Made Aregbesola from nowhere to become a governor. Made so many others. And as of that time, what Tinubu did was almost ingenious in the sense that what he created was a political party unto himself. Now, the meaning of that is very simple. A political party is not a private limited organization. In fact, nobody should, in the actual sense of it, own a political party. Everybody will come and join a party, never owned by anyone. In which case, it's a voluntary thing to join a political party. There will be political associations and your political leanings, whether you are a capitalist, whether you're a welfareist, whether you're for egalitarianism, whether you are for progressivism. So you will put all of this together into your consideration and say, oh, this political party suits my purpose. And then you join. And then there will be succession planning. There will be a chairman that will go, and another will come, and then they will, every 4 years, elect new officers. So nobody truly owns a political party. But with the Tinubu ACACN, he owned everything. He was law.
How?
He was the emperor. Okay, let me start from his trajectory. We all remember the Abacha days and how NADECO was formed by Afenifere. He was never a part of Afenifere. I'm a chieftain of the Afenifere. He was never a part of Afenifere. He was actually with a group called Primrose. He was with the late Yaradua, not the Umaru Yaradua, the ex-president that has transited, but his brother, the general. That was the group he belonged to. But because he joined in that struggle, he was able to have a free pass into the Afenifere structure, even though he was not exactly a member of Afenifere. He was not a member of the Ganiu Daudu-led Afenifere. But because of his exploits in the NADECO, when the time came to choose or elect, primaries were conducted in places. But with the AD in those days, most of the candidates were picked up by consensus. But because he was not really an Afenifere, Gani Daudu put up Funshaw Williams as the Afenifere candidate. So he was not an Afenifere candidate, but AD was Afenifere. Afenifere was AD, but he was accommodated. So he joined AD. He didn't own AD. But because of the misfortune that befell the AD, that was when he found the opportunity to jettison the AD and create his own political party, in which case the AC was his own creation. He created it. It was not like the conglomerate of the Afenifere leaders who came in together, but like Papa Adebanjo, Papa Sholanke Onosoya, Salani Huajayi, the leader, Papa Adesanya, Papa Fashionoti, and all the other leaders of the old movement of Afenifere. They all came together to establish the Afenifere. And then from there, they established the AD, and then that was how Tinubu was able to get a foothold. So nobody could say that only one person owned AD, but Tinubu single-handedly created the AC and decided to draw people from Afenifere to the AC, and decided to draw others out of the progressive membership of others, and from those who are not even in any way progressive, he started to attract those that he could use. And I will explain something today. You see, the Tinubu strategy was not based on any ideology. If anybody is telling you that, oh, this is the party of progressives that Tinubu backed, nothing can be more preposterous. All he wanted was power. And it didn't matter how this power was going to be gotten. He went for power.
Right.
There was no ideology. The Afenifere always had the ideology. The Afenifere is not an amorphous group of all comers. It's a group dedicated to those who are followers of Chief Awolowo and believe in the principles, the doctrines of Awolowo. In the writings of Awolowo produced 16 books and 19 pamphlets from which we draw our inspiration. But Tinubu jettisoned all of that and created his own doctrine. And his doctrine was mainly about power. And it didn't matter to him how the power will come.
Is there something magnetic about the personality of Tinubu? What role did Tinubu's brilliance, money, and violence play in the establishment of Tinubu's political empire?
Let the truth be said. I know about the antecedents of the entity who goes about with the name Bola Ahmed Tinubu. My father was the vicar of a church, St. David's Kudeti, in Ibadan in the 60s. Tinubu lived in Kudeti in the 60s. He lived first with the Odunjo family and then later with the Akonde family. So I have known him from a very, very humble background and all of that. And he's been pushed all along to get out of that very humble beginnings, to work hard, to become someone. So he was not born with a silver spoon, and he became very street smart much earlier in his life. And he wouldn't want to be reminded so much of that. He drew to himself those who didn't quite know so much about him. He enticed a lot of people to himself by gratis. It is not so much about the personality of someone with so much of ideology and principles and ethos, but more of what I can call merchandising leadership. Everybody, they say they have a price, but it's not everybody that has a price, but most people do have a price. Is that street smart enough to have been able to gather to himself those that could be bought? So in which case, loyalty to Tinubu was not about the love of a man that had risen beyond the ordinary. I'm not going to shy away from saying it. He created this empire. He worked hard to build that empire. And, you know, the law of forces. A lot of people found themselves being pulled into the empire. We have the death of what we call the Omoluabi ethos. Omoluabi to us Yoruba is a big thing. Omoluabi is bigger than money, is bigger than position. Omoluabi is to be so forthright, steadfast in doing anything, in being focused about service to others, not service to self. And Omoluabi will strive for the society to be better. And he's not going to be thinking so much about what comes to self.
So, Mogaji Adejumo, the reason I brought in brilliance is this. There have been other characters that have governed Nigerian states that have also acquired wealth over time. But none of them has been able to build the kind of empire that Tinubu has built. There must be something special and unique about the man.
There will always be something. I wouldn't know whether it's going to be so special, but the gravitas, the idea will be what pushes a man, what drives a man. If you are driven by principles, you will know your limitations. But then, of course, there's so much poverty in the land, and the basic principles of Omoluabi, the basic principles of humanity have been eroded. And you know it. You and I are not going to run away from saying the truth.
If you are just joining this discourse, Gboyega Adejumo is my guest. Don't go away.
Reading is feeding the mind. Feed the mind. Go to udarabooks.com. Udara Books, feeding the mind.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
The program is State Affairs. I am discussing with Mogaji Gboyega Adejumo. We are looking at his article where he wrote about the fall of an empire. In this case, he looks at Tinubu and says that Tinubu's political empire is crumbling. What will Tinubu think about Adejumo's philosophical writing? But here, it's Adejumo explaining his text. Let's go back to your philosophical article. You state that an empire will always at that time arrive at the precipice, bound for a collision, aided by a collusion. The rumble, the tumble, and the crumble, all inevitable at this stage. So when you say collision, what do you mean? And what do you mean by collusion?
What normally will happen is that at such a time, an empire can last. The Roman Empire lasted for a little over 1,000 years. That much I can tell you. The Oyo Empire lasted for 650 years. The Great British Empire only lasted for 350 years. The Soviet Empire lasted for just about 78 years. Now, why would an empire crumble in the first instance? Because it is inevitable. It's a law of nature. What goes up must come down. But there will be the need to study why an empire crumbles. If you check on your empire, it crumbled from within. From within. The Oyo Empire, the Yoruba Empire, extended from the River Niger to the River Volta in Ghana. But then it still crumbled, but it crumbled from within. If not for Afoja and his insurrection against Alaafin Ole, the Oyo Empire will still be there. Perhaps, maybe until the British came or something. The British Empire crumbled when America revolted and the rest of it in 1776. So there will always be the culmination at a point that forces will come and an empire will have to simply succumb. When I said coalition with an external force, if Tinubu had remained in the southwest, had become the overlord, believe me, no Aregbesola would have been able to fight him. so openly. Nobody would have been able to oppose him so openly amongst his so-called disciples. This is a man that had 6 governors at the time with his ACN. Today, he barely has a governor and a half. Why? Because rather than stay back in his cocoon as the Lord of the Southwest, as the Emperor of the ACN, the lure of greater power and perhaps the stretching of his empire led him into a coalition with others to form the APC. In which case, being the owner, sole owner of APC cannot happen the way he was the sole owner of the ACN. It couldn't happen, and it wouldn't happen, and it didn't happen with the APC. But he didn't quite see that. He thought that it was going to be an extension of his empire. So he ventured into the Sahel. He ventured into the grassland. But he was dealing with those that I will call veterans of how to deal with power. In fact, the Fulani, they know nothing else but how to hold on to power. So he was dealing with those who were so vast in the cultivation of power, in the propagation of power, and in the execution of power. And as soon as that happened, some of us, with intuition, with intellection, to see the optics, as it were, knew that the end was just about to come. And why he didn't see it is only because all empires are built on greed. All empires. Because you want to build an empire, you are taking from others. And of course, you are blind to the yearnings of the people. You do not want to even believe that anyone can oppose you. You could do that within the homogeneous Yoruba nation. But as soon as you ventured out into other ethnicities who are perhaps masters of the same trade, I look at the Fulani, they came in 1804. They subdued the Hausa. They were only stopped at Oshogbo. They almost got to the to conquering the whole of Yoruba until Balogun Ondanilo stopped them in 1840. But then they still tried. The last fight the Yoruba had with them was in 1897. The Jalumi War in Ikun. So the Fulani, everywhere you go, you find them wanting to propagate this their innate need for greed to take on other people's property, other people's lands, and the rest of it. So by the time that coalition occurred, himself an empire coming from somewhere, then teaming up with some other empires and other emperors. Of course, it was only going to be the time was only going to come when, of course, 2 rams will not be able to drink from the same pot. They will lock horns. So at the very beginning, when they were saying he's the leader of the APC or the national leader of the APC, President Buhari corrected him and said, "You are not the leader. You are not the national leader of the APC." They shot him out of the BOT. They shot him out of the NWC. If they're having the most crucial meetings of APC, he's not called. He wanted to be the vice president, and cunningly, they led him into believing that he could be. But as soon as Buhari got the ticket, he was jettisoned. So that was a coalition. That was a coalition with bigger powers.
In the Southwest.
When I said he was in charge of 6 governors, 6 states, and gradually he's wound down to 1.5 governors. I know what I'm saying.
So what
they're all in
saying?
the APC. But is Fayemi with him? Is Fayemi doing his bidding? Will it have been the same thing if he was in ACN? Akeredolu is not with him. Fayemi is not with him. Ajimobi was there at a time, but Ajimobi is no more there. PDP has taken Oyo State. In which other state? Osun, yes, his cousin is there as governor. But look at what is going on between Aregbesola and Oyetola. And are you going to say that he owns Dapo Abiodun of Ogun 100%? I'll tell you no. So where does it stand? Well, Sanwo-Olu is there in Lagos.
You know Lagos is big. Is Lagos not everything?
Lagos is not everything, because the people of Lagos are now even shouting Lagos for Lagos. And even within, that is when I said coalition and then collusion. Collusion from within, because most empires actually crumble from within. So the elements in his empire that are within are now coming out to fight him. And that's what I meant by collusion.
Let's look at this. Tinubu has been going around the country in preparation for a presidential contest. He has visited the traditional chiefs, the main traditional kings in Yoruba land. He was at the National Assembly during the week. He has gone to see Ibrahim Babangida. This is a man who confidently says he is pursuing his lifetime ambition.
Well, let me say this. I wrote at the end that when an old lion is old, you know, what we have is a pride of lions. When you talk about the brood of vipers, you talk about the school of elephants, to describe, that's the nomenclature, to describe how the lions form a family. When the pride of lions realize that an old lion is no more capable of running, three things are bound to happen. And of course, the small hyenas, the jackals, they will now want to start to prey, nibble on him, bite him a little, let him know that he's no longer king. And that is happening. You see, you started by saying that he went to Babangida. How on earth would he think that by going to Babangida is going to placate anyone? Is Babangida not the one who scuttled June 12? Is Babangida not the one who made sure Abiola did not become president? And you were in Nadeko, which was purely to actualize the presidency of Chief MK Abiola. And he thinks Yoruba people are fools. If he's going to go to someone to solicit help to become president, he's going to be the adversary that sent many people to death. Papa Riwane was shot and killed.
Under Abacha.
Abraham Adesoya escaped being killed. Ganifa Emi's house, they went to, they shot everywhere, they killed his megad. He was only lucky to be alive. General Akilade had to jump over his fence, broke his leg, they burnt his house, just because of this Babangida. And it's the one you are running to now to become president. So it's almost become farcical. And then the Obas that you had maligned, insulted in 2015, there was no names, he didn't call the Obas. He said only one or two Obas are credible. Now you are running to the same Obas. But gone are the days that the Obas will issue a decree and say, go and vote for A or B. And then I remember very well, you can go to Senator Shehu Soni's page. He said, for all the northerners that are coming to Tinubu, who are pledging their support, he says he laughs. He said all he has to tell Tinubu is that he should tell those who have come from the north to say they are pledging their support, to go and put their posters and paste their posters on their homes if they would dare to do so in the north. That's a heavy statement. Of course, the northerners know what they did to Jonathan. They promised him heaven and earth. They made him to spend all the money on them. At the end of the day, what did they do to Jonathan?
So what are you driving at?
All the telltales are there. The ruling class, they don't want him. The powers that be, they don't want him. And you see, let me tell you something. You better study your adversary very well, because if you have a worthy adversary, Machiavelli wrote about it. Cicero, the one people will say Cicero, Cicero wrote about it. Quite a few other philosophers have written about this. And what they have said, principally, is that you will not be able to know the real situation when people are flocking towards you. Because some will be smiling at you. They are not smiling with you. When they are smiling at you, they are making mockery, but it's still a smile. If they are smiling with you, they are accepting you. What I see around is mockery. And I'll tell you something again. There's an important quote of Uthman Dan that says that conscience is an open wound and only the truth can heal it. That is a powerful quote that has been ascribed to Uthman Dan. But the more powerful quote of Uthman Dan that they have not really brought out, because they know that if we all know about that, then perhaps we will know the subterfuge. We will know how the house of Uthman Dan how they operate. But the examples are there. This quote describes everything that is going on. And it goes this way. He who steals for you, will come back and steal for you. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Break it down.
Somebody goes out of his own enclave, of his own home, to go and steal part of your patrimony in your own home, to go and give to a stranger. Let that stranger not believe that you are loyal. If you can take from your own homestead, deny your own people of certain things, and then you now go and give to the adversary what you have taken from your own stead, that man is not to be trusted. Because if he can steal from his own people to give to you, then he will steal from you, because the man has no principles. Now, they dealt with Afonja. Afonja was that person who created problems for the old Oyo Empire, created problems from the Alaafin, demanded the Alaafin must die. And in the process, he enlisted the Fulani army to destabilize the Yoruba nation. But did the Fulani trust him? They didn't. When they had used him and they had gotten to where they believed they can take power, they executed him. In fact, 100 arrows were shot at him. His body couldn't even fall down because the arrows pinned him to a tree. That's the despicable death that Afonja suffered in the hands of those that he stole from us to give to them.
Tinubu is not Afonja.
Do you think they would trust Tinubu? Do you think they would trust Tinubu? What did he steal from us? Many things to give to them. Mulika, Honorable Mulika, was meant to be the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Number 4 citizen. Who scuttled it and gave it to Tambuwa? Was it not Tinubu? And when it was payback time, who scuttled the first attempt by Gbadabia Miller to be Speaker? Was it not the same Tambuwa? Because they couldn't trust him. You see, all these parallels in history will always happen. What I have written is the truth, is the way it works. All empires at a time must come down. All empires are built on greed, and greed will destroy it.
Are you now saying that Tinubu the lion has become weak? Therefore, the hyenas and the jackals are hounding him for blood, needling him, biting him?
Yes, needling, biting, and like the mosquito that has 6 proboscis, they're sucking his blood. And at that time, the lion has 2 choices: either to bow out honorably, prepare for his retirement, or continue to fight on. But he's an old lion now, wounded, weakened. But the more he fights, the more he draws to himself an army of insurgents from within. That is when others in Yoruba land, who are tired of being mere appendages, who have been wronged, who actually we want to say otoge, will now come out and inflict more injuries to the old lion. I wrote that the only true value to a successful tenure of any emperor, devoid of ignominy at the end, is to prepare for a honorable retirement. And when the signs of decline begin to show, that is what Tinubu should do now, but it's not. Because all empires will always have this stubborn emperor who will not know when to stop and will be galvanized to continue until the final destruction will come.
Thank you, Mogaji Gboyega Adejumo, for featuring on State Affairs.
Well, I'm always available to the brilliant, fantastic presenter and a thorough, intelligent, and very vast broadcaster, one of the best that we have in our land. So I'll always be available to you, Edmond Obilo.
Thank you very much, sir, for always being there.
Thank you.